Just a little bit of a continuation. I seem to be distracted here and there. There's timely phone calls. I put together the timely phone call system thing. It's also to ensnare guilty parties or what have you that may try and agree to certain distractions, certain types of attacks, either thought process system, phone calls, certain types of inconveniences, maybe food product bot, certain things, certain types of messages, etc. So individuals that would have agreed to certain types of things, such as distractions, purposeful distractions of some sort, intentional distractions of some sort, to try and mm, alter the communication that I am bringing forth for their own self gain and or for their own self desires as to what they're trying to communicate, they are subject to life in prison, whether or not they're subject to the death penalty. If in fact they are relatives of mine, they most likely will be receiving life in prison if they're guilty and if they're subject to the life in prison. Maximum, usually relatives of mine would get life in prison. There are certain circumstances to whereas I am able to decide worldwide matters, military men, relatives of military men, political individuals, relatives of political individuals, royalty, relatives of royalty individuals, so on and so forth, descendants of royalty, etc. I'm able to make that decision. For example, there are they that are delegated. I know who those individuals are because I put the system together. I'm delegated to all systems, policies, procedures worldwide. I am the highest ranking pure heart and brain in the world. I always have been. I'll be the commander-in-chief of planet Earth my entire life, 92 years old plus. I am the king of the world indefinitely, so on and so forth. And so, anyways, aside from that, those individuals would be subject to life in prison and or the death penalty. So I would hope that they would not do that anymore if in fact that was what they were choosing to do. Please do not try to manipulate certain things to communicate in certain manners, to whereas that you might try to impose and propose certain beliefs or desires, whether it's certain types of criminalistic beliefs or aspirations, corruption beliefs or aspirations, business desires or aspirations, and or some types of family agreement beliefs of some sort as to business of some sort with certain levels of corruption, rather than innocence and kindness and certain structures that I've put together in this progression, in this war against the criminal mentality. For example, those guilty parties would receive their rebuke and or personal conviction of the heart and or life in prison sentences if that's what they need, possibly subject to the death penalty depending on the level of corruption, and you're not capable of being guilty of trying to assassinate, for example, myself or anyone else, then you're just not permitted to overstep your bounds and try and defend in certain manners. If there are certain circumstances to whereas you would be aware of certain situations and there may be a need to defend myself or relatives or even people here in the United States of America or around the world, obviously innocent individuals and or certain levels of innocence, okay, it's understandable, but don't overstep your bounds, please. Receive your rebuke, receive your personal conviction of the heart and or life in prison sentences, knowing that you're possibly subject to the death penalty, depending on the circumstances. Okay. Aside from that, considering the fact that I am the Commander-in-Chief of planet Earth and the King of the World indefinitely, my name is Teofilo Fernando Ponce III, and it is November 15th, I think, maybe the 16th. It's November 15th, if I'm not mistaken, 2024. And anyone that tries to arrest me and or have me taken to a mental facility is subject to the death penalty, period. It's been that way for quite a while. People didn't know that. It's been that way. There were certain types of circumstances to where there were certain circumstances to where as I was undercover, I am undercover, have been undercover, whatever, what have you, have been undercover, and it was hidden to whereas my certain rank, title, so on and so forth, job here in the world, or in the or in the United States of America, and obviously in the United States of America and around the world. So, if you try to arrest me and try to put me in or try to put me in a mental facility, you're subject to death. And if you actually do arrest me, you'll be getting the death penalty. So that's made known. So I won't be arrested, and they won't be putting me in the mental facility. I just know. Nevertheless, I am moving forward. So anybody who tries to do so, just in case you guys were wondering, those people would be subject to the death penalty. And if in fact they do arrest me, put their hands on me, try to handcuff me, they would be receiving the death penalty. So there are certain circumstances that I planned out to whereas I would have had handcuffs on me. It all went well, word for word, thought for thought. There are they that tried to assassinate me, some even police office uniforms. There are investigations, so on and so forth. So yeah, please don't try to arrest me and or try to put me in a mental facility and or claim that I'm mentally disabled of any sort. I have been undercover from time. I put the whole structure together: Social Security Department, mental facility department, law enforcement, prisons, political, business, all these things, teachings, words, languages, in the English language derivative of the United States of America. Myself specifically, I put things together. The Webster's Dictionary was all my idea, so thing is such, As you all know, I wrote movies, television shows, such as Freshman of Bel-Air. Will Smith, also known as Kevin Christensen, also known as Tuna, Uncle Tuna, or whatever, is my uncle. I love him very much. He's very funny. But he is not the most innocent person in the world, okay? And he did, in fact, rape my mother, Adorado Seiko, when I was very young, maybe 2 years old. And so I held him accountable and I put him on TV and I made him a popular, likable person. Nevertheless, we would all be careful about certain things as to maybe we don't want to overly hold individuals accountable, and it was years ago, but at the same time, we would hope that he wasn't guilty of possibly trying to assassinate my mother. I would hope that she's still alive, and I would hope that he would defend her rather than attack her. And so, if that's the case, then that's a beautiful thing. Nevertheless, he may have been guilty at one point in time. I would hope that he's innocent these days. Love him very much. He was very kind to me. He's very kind to Chad. Chad's more criminalistic. He may be incarcerated for the rest of his life. I hope not. So, that's that. And I did name the country Chad, and it was for a reason, because I have a cousin named Chad and a friend named Chad and another individual named Chad that was derivative of Russia, that may or may not have been a drug dealer, that I may or may not have looked after from a very young age and met him in person, because I created and invented drugs here on planet Earth as we move forward in the progression against the war against criminal mentality and or murder acts. And so there were certain types of drugs that were released and certain types of drug applications within local communities to keep guilty parties and innocent parties separate, and then we would have the local community structure and keep people as safe as possible, and then families, etc. So whatever. I understand that people have tendencies over the years, and not only survival, but keeping people safe. Please don't overstep your bounds. Okay. So, but anyways, yeah, Uncle Tom, I love him. I hope that he's safe. I'm sure that he's safe. Chad was busted. Hopefully, he's not trying to be in prison for the rest of his life, or just choosing to be a criminal. You can't be a criminal these days. We're removing criminalism from society. Period. Innocence and kindness will rule and reign on planet Earth permanently, definitely. Period. So, nevertheless, I named Chad to remind myself that Osama bin Laden was a guilty party, because I knew there's a bad guy. There's like, if you wrestle with God and in your heart or what have you, then you can probably imagine that certain geographic location in the world, like the Middle East, like Israel, Iran, Iraq, so on and so forth. There's more innocent people, there's more guilty people, or whatever. So there's certain types of wrestling. Those guilty people would probably be extremely dangerous. You know what I mean? So if I name Chad, and it's over there, Northern Africa of some sort, to whereas it's near the Middle East, then I might remember that. A hint to myself that there are, if in fact Osama bin Laden does pass away, if we have to militarily strike him down, for example, if we would have had to militarily strike him down like 2012, 2016, and or be checkmated in 2023 and receive his death penalty after having been proven guilty in Monterey County, and then given his death penalty because per the U.S. government, per the United Nations, per myself, then Monterey County Naval Postgraduate School, there would be investigations and individuals would be proven guilty of war crimes, for example, against the United States of America and or the world. So, and obviously against themselves because they're guilty parties. So he would have been checkmated in 2020 given his death penalty. If certain things were averted to certain extents for whatever and proved him guilty in certain manners and he's still alive, okay, then I'm sure that the individual would be proven guilty and receiving his death penalty and or militarily struck down. It's really not that big a deal. I feel as though there are certain guilty parties that are like dangling around like cockroaches with their legs out. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if we were to swoop them up rather than militarily strike them down from the Middle East, and we drop them off in the United States of America without any weapons, without any types of access to bombs, any types of access to knives to where they might try to cut our heads off or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And they were just out and about. We proved them guilty not only as they were guilty parties that were there, like within Al Qaeda or ISIS, but we like dropped them off over here and we proved them guilty, and they went running around trying to receive information from technology, television, or whatever, trying to receive information based upon what they've learned and trying to survive, and then proven guilty as different aliases as to their personality traits, characteristics, and that they were those individuals that we suspected them to be. For example, over there in wherever the Middle East, if they were, you know what I mean, those guilty individuals, because we could have militarily struck them down, and we're allowed to do that. And if they're spies, terrorists here in the U.S., we can move forward and just get rid of them. But if we're proving them guilty ethically, strategically, methodically, and there's people that have been guilty as criminals even to the slightest, or have a criminal mentality even to the slightest, and so they would receive personal conviction of the heart, that they might see resemblances even to the side of not just physical appearance, but weaknesses or struggles or tendencies that they may have. And so if they're not careful, and if they have certain types of opposition or rage or competitiveness, that they might end up winding up that far as to a guilty party. And we would all assume and know and probably and possibly never even have the capability to be any type of spy or terrorist, but have that certain type of weakness or tendency within their heart or throughout their lives, to whereas they would be guilty parties, competitiveness, royalty beliefs, criminalistic way of life or beliefs or mentalities, rage, certain types of tendencies that guilty parties may have from the Middle East, for example, and or Russia, with all due respect to Russia. There's innocent people from Russia, so I appreciate the innocent individuals. Nevertheless, and as well as the Middle East, nevertheless, if they see those certain things, then I would hope that we would progress as a people. But yeah, please don't try to arrest me. Please don't try to say that I'm mentally disabled, and or please don't receive your death, like receive the death penalty for trying to arrest me. So.